there's not going to be another player anywhere, not a government, not a company. Nobody is going to have the ability to convert real world video data into useful action better than Tesla, because no one else is going to have this infrastructure that is specifically set up to solve this problem.
So let's start off with a couple videos. We'll do this one first with this guy named Carson Block. He is the CIO and co-founder of Muddy Waters Capital. But he explains kind of like initially he was a bear on Tesla. He turned into a bull. And then he's basically kind of explaining how, Elon plays the game better than everyone else, pulls rabbits out of the hat. Let's watch what he says.
This perfect balance between BSing and delivering. Okay. I mean, the cars drive, the rockets fly, the satellites work. He does these incredible things. Does he routinely overpromise? I mean, say things that it's hard to imagine he can say with a straight face? Yes, he does. But does that matter? Apparently not. So yeah, nobody's played the game better than he has. It is a volatile stock, but it continues to get flows. Going back to what I said earlier, and will continue to get flows. And I think what everybody on the bear side missed about it, the arguments were, oh, Tesla doesn't have the scale, it can't compete with Toyota, Volkswagen, blah blah blah. And that's true. They didn't have the sales base scale or the manufacturing scale. But what all of the bears missed, and was what my epiphany really was in 21, was that Elon understood that the base the scale he needed to have was capital base. And so when he was able to yoke that stock price way up and have this enormous market cap, I mean, even if the company's bleeding billions of dollars and the stock is sinking, there's so much market cap that he can continue to raise money, and Tesla's not going bankrupt for a very long time. And that's what the bears missed, because the bears were hung up on this, oh, it bleeds money, it's going to go bankrupt.
Right.
And look, I was in that camp for a number of years, but no, Elon pulls rabbits out of the hat constantly. Look, it's one thing to bet on him or bet on Tesla, but I just won't bet against Elon. I did in a minor way several years ago. We had long day, we had crash puts on Tesla that almost hit and paid off, but no, it's just, you can't bet against the guy.
We'll explain why that matters more shortly, but what do you think of his comments? Pretty good.
One of the things that actually made me reflect on that is interesting is Elon's, pivot recently away from volume on the vehicles and growing those as fast as possible, and really doubling down on just the importance of AI overall. And I think that is the overhang that maybe Elon feels personally for the market cap of Tesla. That, if we go back to those time frames, Elon did remark, he said, I feel like the market cap, the stock price right now is too high. And for, a CEO to say that, I think one of the things that Elon is reflecting on is the expectations that came with the, essentially $1 trillion market cap that Tesla had at one point in time. That just the auto business alone, without the autonomy piece, it was pretty hard to justify a reasonable return on capital out into 2030 on just the delivery of 20 million vehicles, if you're talking about margins that are roughly in line with the margins that you would expect on an automotive company in the 15 to 20% range, being on the high side. So that, I think, really does drive home the need for Elon to really execute on that autonomy piece, because without that piece, then you really don't have the overall cash flows on a company the size of Tesla that justify those large stock prices and market caps. And so that is one thing that I was thinking about, and that plays into some of the other points that we'll be talking about today as well. But the thing is that Elon does typically execute on these large goals, even if sometimes it's late. I mean, the booster catch that we saw this last couple weeks now was such an incredible achievement, technically, for them to be able to do that, and the sign that that actually is for SpaceX's ability to execute on their goals to make civilization on Mars a viable reality. That is a huge technical accomplishment, and I think that it is in the same realm of difficulty that delivering on full unsupervised FSD is going to be. And it does drive confidence that Elon can once again, like Carson said, pull a rabbit out of a hat and do something that a lot of people think is impossible, and do it at a scale that makes all of the other players that the rest of the market has a lot of confidence in, like Waymo, um, make what they're doing really end up being insignificant overall in the marketplace. And that is what Tesla retail investors are betting on. And Elon has an incredible track record over the long run of being able to deliver on these crazy moonshot ideas even when they're late. And that patience, going back to the famous Warren Buffett quote, the stock market is a mechanism that transfers wealth from the impatient to the patient. And I think that's especially true in Elon Musk's case. The people who have held Tesla since, the 2010s, the 2012 era, have seen incredible returns on their portfolios. And I have confidence that the company that Tesla is today has the ability to continue to do that moving forward for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. I like what Carson said. What you just said, of course, is you know, the cars do drive, the rockets do land. Sometimes when he says these things, they actually get accomplished. But I think the big point is that Elon and Tesla, they're playing a different game than everyone else is. And they play that game better than everyone else is. So now the game is compute, and the compute can solve autonomy and, of course, the bots as well. And no other car company is doing that. They're still focused on cars. Few are doing that. So, as a reminder here, as we get into how it is that Tesla is, even on the compute game, they're beating all the others. We'll show you the details of that. But here you got Elon just recently. He said that several years ago, but he repeated it just a few days ago, where he said, if it were not one, but two technology discontinuities, one being electrification, the other being autonomy, I think Tesla could not succeed without solving both. What he's saying is that there was a change, right? A tectonic change in the auto industry, switching from gas cars to electric vehicles. But if that was just one and that was it, Tesla would have succeeded. They would have done well, but it'll be a very competitive market by the time everybody catches up. But the problem is, for the auto industry, there's two technology issues. One is moving to electric vehicles, the other one's going to autonomy. And that is where the big deal is. Let's listen into what he said here.
That is a hard problem, I have to say. In fact, if we're not for not just one, but two technology discontinuities, one being electrification and the other being autonomy, I think Tesla could not succeed without solving both. Not just one, but both.
Okay. Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean that is playing into the point that I made earlier about Elon really feeling the weight and the gravity of having to solve the autonomy piece, not only from a market cap perspective, but also for a transition to renewable energy economy overall in transportation. That if for some reason it was only gas cars that were autonomous, that would actually make it much more difficult for electric vehicles then to be competitive, and for our transition to a renewable energy economy to be successful. And so, we have to make the transition to EVs, and we have to make the transition to autonomy in order for EVs to really be the answer to transportation, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now. And all of those things are necessary for Tesla to succeed and for Tesla investors to succeed, also on the back of that. So, yeah, very important.
Very important. And then, so the whole game now is Tesla needs to become a computing giant and to be able to solve autonomy. And so that's why we're going to talk first about XAI and what XAI is doing, Tesla, Elon's other company. But when you see what he is able to do for that data center, you can then see what he's doing for Tesla's Cortex, which is Tesla's own data center. So there's Brian Wang. He's Next Big Future. I've had him on this channel several times before. He does great research. He shared this, right? So we heard Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, and I'll play this clip where he said that it only took XAI, Elon, 19 days to build their data center, where it typically takes a company 365 days to do this. But when you translate this out and you kind of forecast this out, it will translate to 10 to 20 times more training for XAI models by the end of 2025 and all the way to 2027. Basically, other companies, because they're so fast in launching their data center, by the time the other companies even start, XAI is already well on the way of growing and buying more. He shares a number of tables. Do you want to explain what this table is about?
Yeah, so what Brian has done here, at least my interpretation of it, is that he has used a combination of the capacity that a training cluster has in, basically overall H100 equivalents, and then multiplied that by the training time they've done. And so he's using the column there that says chip years basically as a way to measure the cumulative amount of training that the three biggest AI competitors in the LLM space are going to be able to accomplish. So those being Meta with their Llama models, OpenAI with their GPT models, and then now XAI with their Grok models. And so, yeah, that cumulative number of chip years is essentially what the cumulative number or like amount of training that OpenAI has done. And currently OpenAI is kind of in the lead on this. Meta is rapidly, catching up to them in the amount of chip years that they have trained with their models. But what we're looking at here is the rapid acceleration of training that XAI has done, and overall, this is leading to a trend where XAI is going to pass all the other major LLM competitors in the cumulative amount of training that is done. And then if success is a function of cumulative training accomplished, then it's really hard to imagine a world in which XAI is not the hands down dominant player in the marketplace from an LLM AI standpoint.
Yeah.
So
you can see here that
let's move to the next one here in just a second.
But by December 2024, the end of this year, XAI is already going to be 33,000 years of accumulation. It's going to be already equivalent to Llama and more than where probably around the same as where the GPT
OpenAI is.
OpenAI is. But if you then carry that forward, by the time we're at 2026, Grok will be at 16 million years compared to these guys at 400,000 by 2026. So the 4 million, I mean. So it's like just crazy how they'll never be able to catch up, is what Brian is saying. So he said this: Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, described how XAI built a 100,000 NVIDIA H100 GPU AI cluster in 19 days. Other customers need a year, 365 days, or about 20 times as long, to install the same size AI cluster. Jensen called the XAI achievement superhuman. The customers of NVIDIA GPUs have to work with NVIDIA hardware, software, data center, and network engineering teams. The customers have to work with NVIDIA for the project plans and timelines. This advantage will be capitalized by XAI in the 2025-26 timeframe for a 10 to 20 times advantage in training AI. And then he describes the procurement in NVIDIA B200s is happening now. and they will be installed and ready to start training by the different companies. XAI will have its first B200 GPU LLM installed, trained, and released before OpenAI and Meta have finished installing their B200s. XAI will be done before OpenAI and Meta reach the starting line for training. XAI can triple or quadruple their training time, increase the overall training, and still beat the others to market. Before we get to this table, I'm going to play this clip from Jensen.
The first of all, acknowledgement of achievement where it's deserved. From the moment of concept to a data center that's ready for NVIDIA to have our gear there, to the moment that we powered it on, had it all hooked up, and it did its first training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
So that first part, just building a massive factory, liquid cooled, energized, permitted, in the short time that was done. I mean, that is like superhuman.
Right.
Yeah. And as far as I know, there's only one person in the world who could do that. Right. You know, I mean, Elon is singular in this understanding of engineering and construction and large systems and marshaling resources.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And of course, then his engineering team is extraordinary. I mean, the software team's great, the networking team's great, the infrastructure team is great. You know, Elon understands this deeply. And from the moment that we decided to go, the planning of with our engineering team, our networking team, our infrastructure computing team, the software team, all of the preparation in advance, then all of the infrastructure, all of the logistics and the amount of technology and equipment that came in on that day, NVIDIA's infrastructure and computing infrastructure and all that technology, to training, 19 days. You don't want.
Did anybody sleep? 24/7.
No question that nobody slept. But first of all, 19 days is incredible. Mm-hmm. But it's also kind of nice to just take a step back and just, do you know how many days 19 days is? It's just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, right.
And the amount of technology, if you were to see it, is unbelievable. All of the wiring and the networking and, you know, networking NVIDIA gear is very different than networking hyperscale data centers. Right. Okay. The number of wires that goes in one node, the back of a computer is all wires. Right. And just getting this mountain of technology integrated and all the software, incredible. Right. Yeah. So I think what Elon and the X team did, and I'm really appreciative that he acknowledges the engineering work that we did with him and the planning work and all that stuff. But what they achieved is singular, never been done before. Just to put in perspective, 100,000 GPUs. That's, you know, easily the fastest supercomputer on the planet. That's one cluster. A supercomputer that you would build would take normally 3 years to plan.
Right.
And then they deliver the equipment, and it takes 1 year to get it all working.
Yes.
We're talking about 19 days.
Wow.
What's the credit of the NVIDIA platform, right? That it's the whole processes are hardened.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So the speed by which he's able to implement this is going to be the critical differentiator. This is XAI. Tell me how this also applies to Tesla's Cortex. This is XAI's Colossus, the largest supercomputer in the world, but Tesla's also creating their own largest supercomputer in the world.
Absolutely. And it is, you know, I think that it's difficult for some people to appreciate the difference in the type of cluster. You know, it's not the same. Cortex is not at all the same cluster that XAI just built with Colossus. That Colossus is a larger version of essentially the same type of cluster that OpenAI has been building in part. Well, really, that Microsoft has been building inside of Azure for OpenAI to use. And then also that Meta has been building for their use with Llama. That those clusters, they're not going to be identical, but they're going to be very, very similar. And a lot of the learnings from how those have been set up are going to apply to XAI. And I mean, Elon's ability to, like Jensen just said, ability to compress the training or the planning phase. He said that could take 2 to 3 years with most other customers of NVIDIA's. They compressed that down to a matter of months. We're not exactly sure. Jensen didn't say specifically how long it was that they were working on that. We do know that XAI is a company that's only about a year old, and so at maximum, a year's worth of planning went into that. It's probably significantly less than that. So that's incredible. But then, the time period from delivery of the actual servers and chips and networking infrastructure and all of that, to the time that training was happening was 19 days. That's ridiculous. This is not the first accelerated project that Elon has participated in with Jensen. That Tesla went through a round of this already with him, that they were able to get a large allocation of those H100s. And this is part of, the graph that Elon has shared about their desire to get to large, scale on training. So Tesla had already done a round of this, and then XAI goes and they do a round of this, and it's even bigger than the one that Tesla did. And now we're coming back to Tesla's Cortex as they're scaling up. The challenge, though, is difficult for Tesla because they're not training on just text-based tokens, which have low bandwidth. They're training on video, and trying to feed the data into these clusters that are training on video instead of text-based data is a different and more difficult technical challenge. And because what Tesla's trying to do is really solve a real world AI use case instead of a purely digital AI use case like OpenAI and XAI and Meta are doing, that different application has different challenges. And so trying to keep large enough amounts of the data that you need close enough to the chips in order to feed them in a timely fashion so that they are actually being used at a high utilization rate, that's very difficult. Tesla is the only company in the world that is really trying to train on that much video data that quickly. And so they're already the world leaders in this. And whenever they are able to actually get Cortex up and running, they'll have another quantum leap forward in their leadership position in this AI video training space. But this is the reason that Cortex is lagging behind Colossus, that while Colossus was an incredibly impressive technical feat and accomplishment by Elon and the XAI team, what they're trying to solve with Cortex is an even bigger, harder, and more significant challenge. And when they get Cortex up and running, I think what that signifies for Tesla's position in the overall, like all of the challenges that we're facing with robotics in general, whether it's FSD or whether it's Optimus, those are software challenges ultimately. And there's not going to be another player anywhere, not a government, not a company. Nobody is going to have the ability to convert real world video data into useful action better than Tesla, because no one else is going to have this infrastructure that is specifically set up to solve this problem.